Chapter 7. Hanging out with Delilah for a few days in Berkeley, I began to grow restless. She, a student of history and philosophy, supported herself sewing denim salvage from discarded or thrift store Levi's into marvelous creations of alternate apparel, like shirts and skirts and vests, etc. Their originality of design brought to mind Jean Claude's boutique. Reckon that crafty design of both hand and head attracted me to her. Her here of a heart beating with a mix of the practical with an imagining mind. She taught me a lot about various philosophies, for although in that field I am, as soon to be realized, a long term brahmachari, a student of Brahman or reality, or I, all of it, why, in the Shankaracharya lineage. I really knew little historically of other Eastern or Western philosophies. Page 144. Or, in my early years of child prodigy, as a philosopher and trained inward, that I am free, free being still, motionless, more a person unborn of any specific memory or spell or school of it in word, in that I am to function as beyond rhetorical oratory merely for a desired effect. I, first, a person in effect now as a prodigy, yet remain ignorant of its own past history, its philosophical roots in language. Why, as to that, I am merely aware of it, awareness of that initial predominant point of you or I, of a I. I mean, who or why, for whatever is the point of pointing it out. A split second as if beside the point in the first place. A seer of it inward, a singular it, why, who ever sees appearing, staring it now for whatever reason, as opening out inward I of it, open I, why still completely itself, complete, despite or contrary to any thinking of itself as otherwise, even while now appearing as anybody wishing to be perceived thinking of it as myself, at 2 years old still a person ageless, unborn, invisibility, invisible, it why as at that time now of a eye opening, to be able to look out in itself as though at itself, in itself as though at itself a subject that I am now subjected to objectivity a while, facilitated in words, words that I had not yet learned at that time now, words provided through that overmind. Still, I had not yet learned to think of it, to look at it as myself, divided from it, myself a memory of it appearing, mirrored out in words as if eyes, nose, lips, fingers, toes, etc., etc., and other words, till about age 7, as is typical, I had not fallen wishing to live with intent to step off that knowing now allegedly as one of it turning into of it, baby. By have lack around twisted as a gain, baby. By as by ka now. No winging, projecting it into an artificial identity. Had not now fallen under that spell, understanding spelling out of it in words. In other words, I had not fallen into captivity. A while now still, motionless, more a stillness of centrality as being, beaming, beaming it from a central it, a centrality of it. Why, for whatever reason, as though circumscribed, as circumstance, as being purely circumstantial. Still, whoa, who is it able to remember or to be forgotten? Forgetting it a while, now remembering it. Why, as otherwise? Who else is there here? Now then, here as there, what or who do you remember most to forget? Forgetting who, which, get it? Who, you or I, is it, all along the long or short of it. Whoever freestanding over or under that spell is sword slicing that indivisible consciousness by knowing over it, so positively, supernaturally objectifying, negating it, superimposing it, that wave, immutable subject that I am now as though not it, that subject as though, as thought to be object, subject as thought to be object, that I am now as though supernaturally, superficially as thoughts of a God, essay to be creator, creation superimposed over itself existing of a creator God creating a visible creation of itself alone yet indivisible, invisible why, for whatever reason appearing a while now, out in space-time, why, beyond the obvious as X. Whereas philosophers introduced to me by J.B. Stone were compelled to find themselves lost as being subject to objectivity along with their thinking of it themselves, captivated under that inward spell. In other words, they were so dang positive knowing it, yet so disadvantaged thinking of themselves as though divided out of it, divided from the very indivisible consciousness now to be appearing of their own rhetorical thinking, thus compelled to philosophically chase after their own tail. All the while now then, they knowing it all, but not realizing it as extension of their own but that wish, that desire to live cuts both ways, to now know it, birth to death that is, or realize it. Realize death is life, or who, or why, for whatever reason it appears to be now or not it. It for a while, a deceit or duplicity as thought felt duplicating by polarity that I am now knowing me or you, in mem or why yet only of itself existing, appearing still, indivisible, invisible it, why or you or I, merely I, of I, first a person, appearing, staring it, mirrored in word to be able to look at it, even before thinking of it as yourself, in other words, as if eyes, nose, mouth, ears, etc., realizing that even now while thinking of it, wise, otherwise, find yourself free, free, free of it now and forever. Much to the amusement of my free awareness state, not to be aware of myself, merely seeing them as seers seeing undivided insight from that still motionless more memory of a being, a person, complete now of that blissful, completely pervasive, joyful love in our reality memory, yet turning, burning by polarity without so positive, negative, loving hate or hating love. Thus, a now why as explaining of it only flattened it out a while like a board, as if bored out in a boredom. Naturally, I could only laugh out in my memory, laugh as of in what listening to them, so full of it, using a knowing denial of it to make some thinking of it themselves as well, in words as thoughts of now as being not it. That is, until I, Willie, fell also under that spell of wishing to live only to be a normal lad tossing my balls around. As far as Delilah knew, I was a visual artist without many words, only really approaching truth itself always half in jest. For me, the only real sin, taking oneself too seriously, the only one sin I tried to abstain from. A shaman once told me, self-importance, the nemesis of humankind. Thinking I'll drink to that, I all too often did. Restless, I spent time walking the streets while Delilah attended class. Aside from some quickly repaired or boarded up broken windows, along with some busted heads, campus life returned to its normal of berserkliness. Yellow-robed Hare Krishnas with shaved heads chanted and danced at the gate to Sproul Plaza, while hippie capitalists now hawked jewelry alongside tie-dyed T-shirts sold from tables on that same Telegraph Avenue. Among the unshaven mixed the elite youth of our upper middle class, so contrasted by ghetto blacks from West Oakland drifting over that invisible border. In the contrast, I found those elite exuding sheltered privilege despite being often disguised in beards and faded threadbare Levi's. Somehow typical everyday tourists on Fisherman's Wharf seemed more real. After all, they were just working stiffs dressed up on holiday, whereas the UC Berkeley campus crowd fed off that so sheltered ivory tower tit. After a few days being in Berserkly Vortex, I felt elated to hitch a ride back over the Bay Bridge to my digs in the marina, thinking how some go to San Francisco, a city sitting perched on the tip of a peninsula surrounded on three sides by water, swept with ocean wind, go there to find themselves lost out in oblivion, find themselves lost, swept away from any constraint of complexities moment to momentarily captivating the endlessly unrestrained free spirit that howls through that once barren nib of rock and sand. For now, a brief while, we have succeeded in covering her in a dress of concrete, brick, and steel. But that sprawl will pass, yielding to a quaking, fog-shrouded, forlorn mood of all of it, created only to be destroyed, never moving, yet always going away. A bliss full of sadness now to be, or not only a while of itself paradoxically found only to be lost at black again, and black again, and black again. The stifled exuberance of its busyness, released from any wily bondage found lost at any time in the blink of any eyesight, dissolved in lysergic acid, conceptual barriers broken, tripping down those hallways of time, piercing the veil between now or later. Then color, my God. No pigment or light could begin to capture the electric, spectral saturation of interior colors breathing with ever-shifting forms, golden-winged hands, colonnaded temples, geometric fractals, jeweled encastrations, mauled in this bloody, busy, whirling world of it, crushed, incinerated, liberated, while others, well, busy, out in, a hurrah, hurrah. Bob says we could collate those napkin orders, the driver offers to his passenger. We're rolling back west over the Bay Bridge, me a stranger in the back seat with two other passengers, women in suits. They smell of soap, shampoo, and perfume while I'm feeling a bit grungy, though freshly showered. No doubt the stench of tear gas still clings to my unwashed Levi's. Purely by coincidence, I've caught a ride while standing unbeknownst to me in a designated ride pool spot. These working stiffs, kind enough to give me a ride, pay little or no attention to my rough dress. Shadowed by war dreams the past 2 nights, I'm feeling now in a heavy mood, caught up in imagining myself in that hopeless bloodbath, that war, haunting as we carry on so oblivious in our privileged day-to-day. Imagined villages littered with dead children gunned down, alongside their mamas and grannies, that war, near while so far away, echoing now, as lifeless bodies piling up now just part of the landscape. In fact, bodies become the very mounds over which in my dream I must climb. Arms, legs, torsos, heads, bullet-riddled, ripped and torn, the terrain I dream myself treading, as boots crunch bones, covered by bloat like breaking through a frozen crust, hidden under layers of clothing. In my dream, we're a platoon packing heavy .30 caliber machine guns, ammo cans, shoulders strung with hand grenades. The air, I imagine, reeking of putrid fresh, layered with chemical defoliants, jolted back, awake now, crossing over the Bay Bridge. I start partially rolling down the window, but air howls in, so I quickly roll it back up, noticing the gal next to me, rearranging some hair blown across her face. By my fall, I pause. Page 146. Sorry, I offer with a smile. She smiles, briefly looking my way. Our eyes meet, then she quickly looks away. The guy in front glances back, then just as quickly turns, tongue wagging back, jaw flapping, thinking this baloney business is what all the killing is about. Ma's murder to provide fodder for the rat race. It's said if the war ends, drying up military contracts, California will go broke. But then it is prettier here now, with that war, that blood money styling it. The women's suits, well-tailored wool and silk, radiate sophisticated wealth. So hard to believe on this very same planet, at this very same moment, people are getting their guts shot out while we sip lattes in sleek sedans, pushing most of the right buttons, sailing along, singing Oblivion song. All my drawing gear is in Jean-Claude's car, so I walk from downtown along some near-idle wharves of old San Francisco, yielding business to mainland Oakland, loading shipping containers on waiting semi-truck trailers, with tourists flying into or out of an ever-expanding airport. The Embarcadero Freeway chokes off any hope of its iconic ferry building coming back to rejoin city life, but still I dig it. Here, it's filthy and forlorn like me, walking northwest from Pier 105 through Pier 39, reduced to a dump site. I reach Fisherman's Wharf, birthing rows of working fishing boats serving an arcade of tiny open-air sidewalk bistros, each wafting steaming cauldrons of fresh-caught oysters and crabs. Salt air, pungent with their aroma, reeks of creosote, preserving in wooden dock pilings, along with the melange of voices in various languages, accented by that constant shriek of seagulls wheeling about. Seals flopped up on wooden dock walkways bark, along with the rest of the carny barkers. The old brick cannery with its worn shops borders the West End. Past it, I moved through Aquatic Park to Fort Mason, then down into the Marina neighborhood with its green between it and the piled stone breakwater offering berths for the elite tying up sleek power launches and sailboats. The people with the dough to patronize art frequent its exclusive clubhouse. Having always been more naturally at home with fishermen, longshoremen, or farmers than the rich elite, I let Jean-Claude cultivate this crowd. For me, he'd procured a marina apartment with a stunning view of the bay beyond the breakwater seen through a forest of sailboat masts. The open green, a great place to meet people, offers some sanctuary between steady avenue traffic and the gusting waters of the San Francisco Bay. Taking my sketchbook there, I'd almost always find a model. Sometimes one thing led to another, but mostly it was a beautiful communion. Like my friend B.J. Stone used to say, communism with a small c. A brahmachari, a student of Atma Brahma, a reality of a real it. Why now, you or I are I of it merely appearing, staring it. That student learns of it. That brahmachari learns use of it for themselves, found out in a triplicity, a trinity of three bodies, or Y modes as X. Learns as experience, a YI modus operandi, or use of it as being three models of function of it, functioning out, in as X, ample of a funny action. A funny or sad cautionary tale of coition, chasing tail as coitus, us, it, why you or I as X, y'all, sexual, that tale of it, sexual, why as X itting, already and willing right now, left out of it, why now, by knowing out of itself, and experiencing of it as sendings to be, a gain felt as though thought, bipolarity, feeling, appearing, a wave, R.I. body, everybody as anybody being now to wish to live with a choice, a free choice now, to know, knowing out of it as being twin between birth or death, freedom or captivity as desire, as being possible, as black of it to be a gain of it a while now out in a maze, hurrah, a space in time, or now, no longer out in the or why, of memory, only knowing, projecting as though as thoughts felt to be of you. Now, no longer merely a feeling, bipolarity, electromagnetic, plasmatic, bioneuronic field of you or I, inward, out, inward as sound, vigorous waves, our body, everybody being to wish to live only, intending, pretending to die. We may freely choose instead intending to find it out for ourselves, a memory of moksha, of itself, liberated liberation. Out in that we may wish to live at any time now, that I am a memory as being moksha, moksha, liberated even now while living on out in our time of me or you. For that brahmachari of that trinity, the stula sharira, the gross physical waking body, is the one most imported, most brought over or out of its source, as it were, in word and metaphorically furthest from its source. Karina sharira, its causal body, a wave body, everybody, anybody, a now Y body as X, as experience. Now, as most imported, therefore of least importance, least significance, the waking body as least significance. Sukshma Sharira, the subtler dream body now, second only to its cause, still so indivisible from it, we only directly experience both after falling asleep into a singular sense of I, seer, seen, a unconsciousness, a consciousness awareness, a I witness now to be even in thought forms of dream indivisible, thus invisible itself, you or I alone as such, indivisible invisibility, invisible it, why, or you, or I now, awake, aware, a 10 binary. By now our I bipolarity seem divided and visible in the sense of touch, out in touch with itself, generating another generation, generated by synaptic, neuronic, electromagnetic, plasmatic, felt feeling field of you or I, still first a person free of it. As such, it is who knows, knowing, denying it is only now potentially touching itself, which comes in handy for Y or you or I as X, y'all, as sexual self-gratification. Yet, even now, that autosexuality only potentially possible after some time now, with intent to perceive, to think of itself, ourselves, just in time now, Y as otherwise, as X, as existential bipolarity ascendings out of itself intentionally, of intentional desire for Ma's possibilities. A bipolarity con, so positive, negative, negating bliss as sorrow, pleasure as pain, me, memory as you or I, a I of I, appearing it twisted by denial, into appearing for the sake of reproducing itself a while now, baby. A ba by now as ka, no, no winging, so positively denying itself, yet a singularity, a singular it, Y as X. As for that brahmachari, none of this intentional ignorance is a problem, because his or her intent now not to perceive, to think of it themselves merely as born to die, but rather that as that same wish to live now with intent to find it themselves as Brahma, a reality, a real it, why, freed Freeness now to be free, simply aware. Where awareness of it now to be itself, hermit, hidden out in plain sight as any seer. Any seer, indivisible invisibility, inside awake or asleep into a unconsciousness, now, always, always and forever still. Stillness not a bi emotion, all why memory, emotionally in words. In other words, you as seer cannot now ever be seen, only looked for at the cost of paying attention to you as thought to be now not you. You that subject of your life, lost by your own intent to live objectively only, as thought born to die alone, forgotten, forgetting who you are. Again, one more time. Now, a black again, a black again, a black again. It may sound curious, but that I am now still as though only one, una, tiny peep in the firmament of Nana, noon or now alleged to fall for it. Well, in the 1970s, looking back, that Nana knew now, then me, on a mostly intuitive level, directly perceived, not desiring so many words to think too much about it. In other words, mostly then now, I had sex, drugs, and rock and roll and surfing on my mind. Page 148. At being BMing still, this point of view of you or I, merely appearing, it appears of it, that I am it, still indivisible invisibility, invisible it, why keeping me, even now in memory, primarily anonymous. Thus, seeking to remain in that obscurity, I sought to avoid any art scene, choosing instead to make my living minute to minute with street portraiture. Some called it just a quickie thing, but I preferred to find these drawings crisp lettuce, money out in a mono eye. In that drawing in public, I found a healing medium communing with the voice in a way word-free, purely seen in sight, drawing on that word-free right brain, equivalent to meditation on its healing nature. In that Psi whole holistic healing mode, I like to feel my model as well heals. When seeing a look of repulsion as in the suit girl's eyes crossing the bay, I fear bad blood on my hands. Maybe as Redeemer, redemption is only a bad joke on me, but somehow, even with taking all the various substances, I never really lose it, only in sight of it thinking of it lost. But still being very delusional in those times, looking back now. From the late 60s, it seemed it took the decade of the 70s to recover it. It definitely felt as if being a refugee from my homeland, 50s Middle America, where communism, always with a capital C, spelled bad poopy, where paranoid alcohol-fueled lifestyles became de rigueur. I called it home. Maybe I kept hold of my whiskey addiction as last connection with its own alienation from home. My marina pad, simple 3 rooms including a kitchen, offered me a gallery of sorts, a place showing a collection of some sketches with photographs of JFK, Jackie, now Jackie O, along with a sketch of Mary Meyer, done from memory. of her radiant with that fire lighting up her face as I remembered it still, its flames gleaming off her shining eyes. Murdered. Murdered then now. Jean-Claude had found an old beat-up easel which he brought to me, along with some tubes of paint, brushes, linseed oil, and a couple of blank canvases. He insisted on setting up the whole affair in front of the window with its view of the bay. Still, somehow, I hadn't then yet been able to make the transition from street drawing to studio painting. The canvases had remained blank up until that point. Now then, I felt spurred on by my Berkeley upheaval, along with my time-loving Delilah. Out of all that confusion came the need for some resolution. Taking out some primary colors of the paint, I mixed 3 or 4 in various proportions to a dark charcoal gray. To this monotone I added some linseed oil until stiff pigment turned liquid. After brushing this out, covering the entire canvases, I bladed a steel straight edge over the surface until achieving a uniform gray transparency. An empty, neutral fullness. It gave me the look of silence, of nothing, now one thing. One thing, something as if nothing without any impression, no thinking of it, superimposed on it, out in it, itself or myself included out in its inward formlessness, now to be yet informing it out in word. Finding a completion in its formlessness, naturally I accidentally dropped a rag on it. Though quickly snatching it off, a subtle impression formed where the rag had absorbed some of the oily paint. Elation turned to despair. My clear vision of it, formless, now clouded by an idea informing of it. For over an hour I gazed transfixed at this accident, trying to decipher its riddle, its concept. What does it mean now? Should I accept it as it is, or try to take it further on the chance its emergence is fate, or is it purely a fuck-up to be left alone just as it is? Would any further effort only reveal my own lack of competence, add to the despair, the disconnect, the schism further dividing me from the painter I once found myself to be? Lost now just like that. After over a decade of avoiding this dilemma, I'd gone and stuck my hand in the fire. They say sometimes a canvas is just a canvas. Make a mistake, incorporate. Somehow, feeling having just casually lit the flame of my own immolation, I froze, only to burn in it. First thinking to get some more paint, then thinking of running the straight edge back over it in an attempt to erase the errant image, I just couldn't make a move toward that damn canvas. Finally, grabbing my leather jacket, I walked out.